right?
It's true.
I
They can set the
never got that
perception.
past my parents, right?
Hey,
And
when
I
I-
said, Mom, but it's just a grade.
Yeah, just a number.
I want the whole
Right.
picture, Mom, right?
I just remember when
I'm
I
a
was-
happy child. She said, kick me in the ass and send me upstairs, right?
Even a few years ago, just back like in 2021 when I was then, I remember talking to people who were like, I just wish that I fell.
All right, let's,
Can we get started, please, guys?
yep, we're getting started right now.
Sure
Let's
thing.
bring the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Joanne, you do the roll call?
Right, Mark Inhart, present.
Tony Sadowski, present.
Mary Alice Brancato, present.
All right.
All right.
And
Three Nelson.
approval of the minutes from the
Approval of the
agenda?
agenda?
Or approval of the
Approval of the
agenda, I'm
agenda.
sorry.
We get
Approval
someone
of the
to make
agenda,
that
motion for
motion.
approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Done.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
The
Carries.
approval of the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, and I'm going to abstain from 9:13 because I wasn't present.
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have someone who here was here on 9/13? I think
I was here.
And
here.
Mary Alice, you were here on
we'll do
13th,
one at a
right?
time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
So
know if I was there on September 13th. This is now November. I
You were,
lucky I know what I
you
did
called
yesterday.
in.
Oh, that
You called
was,
in that
you were
day
on the
as well.
phone that day.
Yep.
You were here.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
So
I-
the
we'll
October
do it
another
minutes
time.
were
I'll
approved
vote yes. Yeah.
and the September.
We're approved with me abstaining.
Cool.
from that.
Okay. So Mark motioned it, you seconded it for the last meeting, you motioned it, Tony, on the September meeting, and Mrs. Brancato, are you seconding that? So that we can
Yes,
check,
sure.
perfect.
Cool.
Moving on. So, work that's completed or in progress, the William Tennant outfield fence, they've removed all the old fencing and the new fencing is going in this upcoming week, so it'll be ready to go for the spring baseball.
Great.
There was one broken light over at William Tennant in the bus loop. It's up and operational. Our insurance company is out on 10/31, and what they did is went through and updated any progress, any projects. They wanted to see every building and see if what we've done so to make sure any new projects were covered under our insurance policy. So nothing groundbreaking there. Everything went well. One thing we did find out, we had to do stage rigging inspections that haven't been completed since they've actually been installed.
Okay.
That we could find any records of. If they were completed, we just couldn't find records. So we're going to have a company come out and do Klinger, Log College, and William Tennant do the rigging inspections in January. So that satisfies that. And it's probably going to be done every other year.
What is a rigging inspection?
So any of the lights hanging, any of the curtains hanging, any of the moving things,
Everything
you know,
hanging.
They check all the mechanisms, all the attaching hardware, everything like that, so it doesn't fall on
Oh.
anything.
Not give us an insurance break, or is it just required?
It's part of
for
the insurance company that came out and looked at all that stuff.
Okay.
It does go into our risk factors. So
Okay,
if
that's
the
what I thought.
inspection's done, our risk factor goes down and we do save money on our insurance.
Great.
And then the William Tennant High School tennis courts RFP is set to go out January 6th. You can see the timeline here. It's set. We've got it set aside, so it's going to be done in a 2-week period in early April, late March, early April. And I've already talked to the athletic director at William Tennant that we can all set that team for that time period somewhere else. He's already going to set that up so we can get it done for that 2-week period, so it won't interrupt their actual play and everything.
Great.
And here's just what we had went over last and what we're expecting the cost of that proposals to come in at, somewhere around that line to get that. Capital projects and planning, what we're looking at moving forward for RFPs in the springs. Those will go out, get formulated January, February, go out for bid. The FCS classrooms at Klinger and Log. That's a full redo of those rooms, either encapsulating or removal of asbestos flooring in those, and then cabinets, appliances, all that stuff. We're looking at ordering the appliances ourselves, have them delivered, installing those, do electrical work, do some plumbing work in-house to keep those numbers down. So it's not a $200,000 project for a contractor. Hopefully we can keep it down in that $140,000 range to save us some money on that.
Is that 150 per building?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, Klinger's a little different. There's a wall that needs to be removed at Log, so it's a little more, but to make the room a little bigger. But they're in that 140, 150, and then range to do those.
In Klinger, they're two different classrooms.
Yeah.
What is one classroom at Log is two in Klinger across the hall from each other. So the sewing part of the class and the cooking part of the class.
And this is scheduled to be done over the summer?
Yeah,
right?
these will be summer projects that we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Same way at the parking lot at Log, the bus side and the front of the school is definitely coming apart right now. It's not quite as bad as Klinger was, but it's getting really close. And then I'd like to do, in addition to that, the teacher parking lot at William Tennant High School. So we have two different numbers to look at to see, depending on where those numbers come in at.
So we'll add the teacher parking lot as an addendum. Right?
Yeah.
So we can, depending on the total cost, we can add it, or you guys can decide to put more money towards it this year or to next year.
Any questions on that?
Would it be, I don't know if we talked about this before, would it be too disruptive to do the family consumer science rooms during the school year and have MBIT get involved?
Yeah, one of the biggest.
Save money, they get credit, but it would be disruptive, right? Would that make any sense?
Yeah, I think it would be a challenge to do it during the school year, right? And I think if we get people, right, the idea is noble. I'm just not sure it's
I've never been
functional
sold on the MBIT.
when bringing them in.
It's a
right?
nice idea.
Because you're going to have
It's just
people
different.
doing their jobs, and then you're going to have sort of students
Yeah,
filtering in and out, right? So
right.
I
'cause
think
they-
that would
it's
be
not
that
full
would
day,
be a
right, 'cause it's not full day
difficult
students,
practice, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember, top of your head, if it's okay if not, but what we were talking about price-wise at the beginning of this project? This has been it's been 2 years since we started talking about it. I remember it was very expensive. So I appreciate the work that's gone into figuring out how to get it done and,
Right.
make it as affordable as we can. Because it could be a massively expensive overhaul. So
Right.
to see it here, I know the numbers were bigger, but I forget what they were.
Alex had reached out to some organizations, right, and
Yeah.
tried to solicit ballpark estimates for that number, right? And it was, to your point, it was astronomical.
It was significantly more. I
It was
just
like
can't remember the
$1 million.
figures. Right, yeah, it was absurd.
It was absurd, right? So the 150 range really came in from our guys, right? So after Alex came back with that, and we said, we can't spend $1 million in a single classroom.
Right.
We tasked Alex and his team to review what we were planning to do, right? And see if our internal guys could better frame that out, right? So if we bought cabinets from Home Depot and we asked these guys to knock them down and install new cabinets, new countertops, at a station, right? Could we do that on our own? And so that's where that's the genesis, if you will,
Right.
of that 150 range.
Yeah, and I remember the beginning of that conversation, so just going back and just a reminder that we were at a way higher number before.
Yeah,
It's not a small number, but to get all this work done and to really
Pretty good.
redo everything in those rooms, it needs to be modernized, it's much better than it was.
And to come out, to validate that number, I actually had a contractor come out and walk through the process with me and give me a written estimate on
Okay.
on those rooms. So that's actually with the contractor doing everything, but the only additional fee to that would be the appliance price.
Gotcha.
But that's what it would cost to get them done and ready for appliances to be installed. So,
I apologize, I forgot your guy came out.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
excellent.
No, it's
just
good.
want to make sure you knew did some work with somebody I've done a lot of work with before, and I trust his pricing, so. I'm in the middle of still doing roofing assessments for the solar project. There's a few that we're probably gonna have to, look at replacing before we do that project. There's some that are 18, 19, 20 years old, and there's no reason to put a 25-year project on 18, 19-year-old roof. There's some options on that. We can have it done and pay for it, or it can be rolled right into the project. So and that's 0%, part of that. So that'll show up on the plan or the project when I get the solar company to come in and do a brief on that.
Okay.
And you'll get us a separate estimate of having a roofing company do them?
Yes, yes, we'll have both options we'll be able to look at.
And which roofs are we talking about?
There's
Which
one,
schools?
so there's one side of Log College that is old and cracking that Chris and I walked, and it's been on there 18 years. There's a portion of Klinger that needs done, and there's a little bit of Willowdale that had some repair and stuff that needs to be done, but it's not like we have to do all of William Tennant and all the schools. They're smaller projects. I mean, the biggest one will be the one side of Log. The whole side really should be
So
done.
Klinger, Log, and what was the third one?
Willowdale.
And how old is the roof at William Tennant?
William Tennant's was put on when the renovation was done in, what was that, 11, I believe?
Or 12, yep.
12. So, but it looks good. We've walked it and looked at it. It's not cracking and falling apart, so it looks fairly good.
Okay.
If you want to, Tom, do you want to talk about the capital update?
Sure, sure. So I shared with the Finance Committee who met yesterday a review of the capital plan and where we are to date. So I thought that would be, certainly useful for this committee to sort of have that same insight and sharing. So this first slide just looks at the budget for 24-25 that was approved as standard, right? And we had roughly $2.9 million in projects broken out to the right as shown. One point of interest as we go through this, the FCS refresh in here that holds that $300,000, right? If we roll it into next summer, it will be next summer's budget to take care of that, right? So we would have an option to have that money carry over. And in the capital fund, that's an easy to do. Okay, you want to click to the next slide? This just shows, this report is a clip from the treasurer's report that's issued every month, just so you can keep track of where we are with regard to expenses. You can see through 24-25, we have expended $739,522 on capital projects. Click to the next one, please. This slide, I think, does a little better job because it also is including the encumbered projects. So while the $739,000 is what is cash out the door, right, we also have commitments for buses, for instance, right? We ordered those buses. The first of those is due to arrive next week, but we have encumbered that $394,000 for buses. So we've sort of taken it off of the budget, if that makes sense. So this column shows the expense column, which is paid for, total $739,000, and then the total number encumbered. So those are things that we have committed to, orders that we have placed, and are just waiting for those to be billed and to be those projects to be completed. Okay.
The capital contingency, that's just a holdback for if we have.
The capital contingency is just that, right? So some of the items that have hit that are shown on the far right. So the softball fields, we redid the softball backstops at Log, the handicap walkway at Davis that was extended to the pickup drop-off area, the high school baseball fence, and then Siemens, one of the last pieces of what do they call that project? The HVAC project that was here. Okay.
That 436 is what's left over?
What 436?
For contingencies? What's that?
Budgeted
The
capital.
budget of
contingency.
436 under.
Right, so the
capital
budget
contingency.
was 436, so it's
Which is how
now,
much?
it's now just under 400, right? It's
Okay.
399 now,
And that's left for emergency projects?
Yep.
That kind of, okay.
right? But we'll also, as mentioned, right, the FCS classroom, if that project rolls into the next year, which seems like it is when it'll happen, it will be, that money will roll over as well. Okay? And this is the last slide, and I think it's, perhaps the most important slide, right? As we shared this same during the budget, this is a 5-year review of capital projects, takes us through 2029. And it shows that we are transferring in $2 million a year to keep these projects funded, right? And that is either coming from the debt service fund or contributions from the general fund when we have end up with a surplus, right? We're able to move that money into the capital fund to be used for these projects. And it's just an important thing to keep in mind, particularly as we get into the budget season and our buildings now reaching that time frame, right? So they're going to be 15 to 20 years old in this window of time. We need to make sure that we are planning accordingly. So things like HVACs, roofs, other building systems, that's when they tend to need to be upgraded. And we saw at MBIT, who sort of did no maintenance, right? No infrastructure maintenance throughout their time, ended up with a huge bill that all of the sending schools needed to contribute to rectify. So that kind of issue, right? In our district, we don't have sending schools to foot the bill, right? No. So it is best that we continue to perform upgrades and maintenance as the facilities need them, or they'll fall into disrepair, and that will be a painful pill for the residents to swallow if that's where we ended up. So just keeping that in the back of our mind, looking out at that window of time and saying, hey, these are the things that we need to be diligent and proactive in planning.
I appreciate it. Even if we've not always gone along with it wholeheartedly, I appreciate the 5-year look that we do and try that careful approach to consistent maintenance and not just waiting 5 years until there's a disaster and we have to figure out what to do.
Yeah, we can't be caught short. Those estimated transfers in from 26, 27 on, I'm assuming that's just based on estimated what tax earnings will be, being a ballpark estimate, where those numbers come from?
Those and that's a great question, right? Because that's reality, right? So those transfers in, the debt service fund has some. I should have put the debt service fund, right? The debt service fund, I think, given those, my recollection serves me, and we'll include it in the email or a note out afterwards, that it follows through 2027 with taking that money, transferring it from the debt service. If there is no surpluses or nothing to add to the debt service fund, right, to keep it solvent, if you will, right, we will then run out of money. We won't have money to fund the 2.7 million shown in 28, 29. I believe that was the year it ended. But I can check that and I'll get right back to you. But that's where that money is shown coming from the budget. Okay?
Information to be presented to the board meeting. McDonald's lead and water testing came back. No detection in any of the samples, which is what I expected, knowing it's a newer school and everything. But it's nice to confirm that and show that we have no detection in any of those. So this is another one. TransFinder is 3 new GPS units for the vans that we just purchased. That we outfit all of our vehicles with. If you look at the initial cost for the first year, $936, $936 for year 2, and $983 for year 3. So a total cost for 3 years is $2,855.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So the TransFinders, obviously, a GPS shows where each vehicle is at any given time, correct?
Yes.
Is anybody actually check those?
Check them as in, what do you mean by check them?
Check, like look at the GPS during a time, I'm just hypothetically, during a time when the vehicles are functioning to see where they are?
Yes, there's actually a large screen in the transportation office that you can stand and watch the location. You can see them moving. You can see whether they're stopped. the dot actually changed color, and you can see the physical location of every vehicle that has one of these in it while it's operating or not
So let me
operating.
ask you another question. Does anybody ever have time to actually look at that during the operation?
I'm sure they're looking at it. I can't tell, I'm not standing there every day when they're operating, but I'm sure they're using it
Sure.
because when something, if something has an accident, they can look and see where it's at if they. to
Oh,
get
I'm
to
not
it.
talking about, I understand that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the buses hiding behind Giant. At the end of a day, there's a lot of milking the clock going on,
Yeah, I
a
can't,
lot. And that's just in my own neighborhood.
I can't answer to that
And
for sure.
it just boggles my mind when I have a bus that came and sat at the corner of my street. I'm 3 houses from the corner. Obviously, it's somebody that doesn't know I live on Kipling Drive. And they sat there for 45 minutes at the end of the day. And it wasn't the bus that normally comes down my street. So I understand everybody's busy. I just want you to be aware that there is a lot of milking the clock going on. You also have a bus from, I reported this before, it's been ignored it twice. And I reported that to Karen over a year ago. You have a bus that goes from Davis, and she's doing 65 miles an hour up the side streets. Somebody needs to talk to her. Her name is Maureen. That's all I know.
Mrs. Brancato, I think in the future, right, if you want to give to Jim the bus that you
Sure.
see sitting on your
Absolutely.
your street, and/or the bus number, right, and date,
Sure.
we can identify them and we can follow, and Jim will follow
Well,
up
that-
with Karen.
Yeah, this was, well, I guess Jim was here, but I have not called Miss Morgan about anything in well over a year, but it's going on all over the place. That's my point.
No? So I
And I understand,
I'd ask that you
but it
contact
shouldn't be
Jim,
me.
right?
It shouldn't, but
No, it
that's
should
what I'm
not.
saying.
It
I
should
know you
not be
can't,
you, but if you're seeing it,
I
right,
can't-
I'd ask you to reach out to him, just as, the
Well, what
community
I'm-
members who've reached out to us directly in the past regarding questions that we try to then resolve them.
Sure. What I'm asking is, and I'm not blaming, I understand everybody's busy. It was a legitimate question. Does anybody really have time to look at that and see, hey, bus 70 hasn't moved in 40 minutes. It's 5 o'clock.
I think
You know-
to the extent that the staff isn't being pulled outside of due to the
Sure.
driver and aid shortage,
Sure.
it is on, it is viewed, it's watched regularly. So I'd be surprised if that was the case, but we'll certainly look into it and get back to you. 'Cause we know where that bus is at all times, and we can report on it at any time. So we can go back and say, hey, Tom Greenwood, I heard that your bus was out, and I can replay your day in the bus at any point in time, right? I know when your lights are on, I know when you're braking, I know what speed you're going, I know everything.
You're missing my
It's
point,
not-
Mr. Greenwood, but that's okay. You're
I
missing
don't-
my point, but that is okay.
I don't think so.
I've heard you share this before, Ms. Brancato, and it's important. I think what Mr. Greenwood's saying is these transfinders are going to help us be able to, substantiate
I'm not-
some of
I'm
this
not
stuff
doubting
and make
that.
sure we're.
I'm not doubting that. I'm saying I understand that their eyes cannot be everywhere at all times. I understand that. And I
So-
understand that the office personnel are having to go out to be bus aides. I absolutely understand that. I'm not faulting anyone.
Yep.
I'm just saying that that is an issue with the milking the clock at the end of the day.
Gotcha. Do we want to move forward on the transfinders for the
Sure,
vans?
move forward.
All
Move
right.
forward.
I do have a question on this, might help to solve this. Can these be set to trigger an alert if a vehicle exceeds a set speed?
I don't
Or
know.
if it's
They
set,
do
or if it sits
record-
idle
We
for a
can
certain amount
look
of
into
time?
it. We can certainly look
Yep,
into it, but we
Well, you
certainly can
can't-
track
You
that.
can't
Or if
set
it,
a
or if
speed-
it sits idle for a certain amount of time, I'm thinking if a driver's on a break or something,
Yep.
has a medical event, passes out, the bus doesn't move.
Sure.
Nobody's available to look at the screen, you might get an alert that this bus hasn't moved in an
No,
hour.
that's
Let's see if this guy's
and
okay.
that's something we'd certainly look into. That's a good.
And it can
I don't
flag,
think you can
flag
put it-
excessive speed.
I don't think you can put a speed on it because if the person is on a highway, they're going to need to do 65. But it is one driver. It has been reported repeatedly and nothing is ever done. And I believe that, and I'm not saying it to be mean.
No,
I think
it's an
she's-
important thing
she's
to
given
discuss.
She's given a pass because they are so short-staffed.
Okay.
And I reported it well over 2 years ago
Okay.
because she pulled out in front of me.
Can we continue this another time?
No, again, so.
We don't
if
have to
you- if you-
continue it at all.
No,
I was
I-
just
I-
trying to make people. All right, let's just move forward because
Thank you.
I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to make people aware. That's all.
Okay, I appreciate it.
So I have a proposal here. Kevin Burns, Director of Security, asked for additional fencing on both sides of the concession stand at William Tennant's Stadium. What's happening is
Can I ask why?
the kids during the game are going back there and the other kids are handing them things over the fence like alcohol and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's no good.
It's really hard to have someone back there the whole time. So if we were to fence that off with a 7-foot-high fence with gates so they could still get vehicles in there to deliver stuff and or get equipment out, he's asking it would help greatly with security of the events.
You know, it has been like that since the beginning of time. Kids are bringing alcohol in their pockets, in their backpacks. I think it's a waste of money to put a fence around there because there's fencing all the way around. They could be handing them in anywhere on that fence line, not just back there.
I'm just bringing it forward from the security department and asking
Yeah.
if we can do it, so.
Okay.
I mean, you know, thinking about it from that perspective too, you know, the rest of the fence line is able to be monitored visually from people there. And not just that, but looking at that site plan, I'm thinking especially in that corner of the building, if somebody wanted to jump the fence and come in and do some damage or do some harm, they're not going to be seen.
Sure.
So that
No,
might be
that's-
a way to bottle them in and help.
I think that was Mr. Burns's idea.
Yeah.
And given his
Mark.
security background, right, while it's been there since the beginning of time, doesn't mean that it can't be corrected.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's what Mr. Burns was asking for, was a little help.
Mark, do you see how
because
high
of
that
time.
fence is? Mark, do you see how high that fence is?
No, how high, I don't know. How high is that fence behind the building?
They're 7-foot
Oh, there's,
fences over there.
okay.
Have any of you ever worked in the snack stand and seen how many kids go back behind there? I bet and guarantee you not one of you has.
I just don't think it's where we want kids to be, so I think the fencing would be a good idea, but we'll
Well,
leave
that's
that
why
up
we
to
have
you.
security guards to tell them not to go back there,
Okay.
right?
Oh, we'll,
Right?
I think we have security guards to keep the place safe, right? Not to babysit the back of a building that could be
No, I'm not
equally
asking
done
them to
with
babysit.
with a
They've never,
fence.
even before we didn't have security guards, nobody had to babysit. You just tell the kids once, don't go back there.
So,
It impedes bringing, putting a fence and a gate there impedes bringing in the supplies. Yes, it's a gate, but that's a whole debacle. Kids can pass
bring it
booze in
forward, right?
anywhere around that fence line, anywhere. How about under the stands where the kids can pass it in there?
So as requested in the past, right, we're just asking for this board,
Sure.
the committees,
Sure.
approval or not approval to bring it forward to the entire.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering.
I would like to
Sure.
bring it forward.
Move it forward, I think.
I think the full board should get a
Yeah.
chance.
I don't agree, but let's move forward.
So we have 3 facility use exemption requests to move forward. One's for Warminster basketball at 50%. As you can see, the numbers are there. One is for Warminster Spartan Wrestling for 50% reduction in costs, and one is for Centennial Aquatic Club for a 50% reduction in their fees also. I'd like to move those, request to move those forward.
Yeah,
to
no
the
problem
board
with
too.
that.
Sure.
Those are all based on the enrollment and the records, right, Joanne?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're all those, all that paperwork's in the agenda
Okay.
to show
Yeah.
everything, so.
Do it all the time.
And then I'd like to move forward a request for the school bus to attend Children of America's Touch a Truck event on November 23rd. And the cost to the district is, with a driver and fuel, $185.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
that,
that's
that'll be a
Now, can
ret,
I ask why Children of America wouldn't pay the driver because it's their event? Do we know why? Have we ever done this before?
Valid question, because it's not a town.
we've done the Touch a Truck event annually. I didn't recall who sponsored the Touch a Truck event before,
That's true.
but we've done the
But
Touch a
this
Truck
one is
event.
actually this one is not at the township. That I understand. This is actually at Children of America in Southampton.
Which is a private organization, not a township thing. It's a valid question, yeah.
Or I could be wrong. I mean, am I wrong? Is it not at Children of America?
It is at Children of America, you are correct.
So if it's a private event for a private company, why would we absorb the cost? It's not at Southampton. Southampton Day is absolutely send a bus. Warminster Day is send a bus. But this is a private event because then we're going to be asked by other daycare centers to also send a bus for their touch a truck. Just a thought.
That's a good point.
Sure.
When I saw the notice, I thought it was the Warminster one. I didn't read the children, so my fault there.
I
I
missed
didn't.
it too.
I often approach these from a place of we can ultimately vote no as a board later, but you know,
Right, so that.
it is
so-
a concern to,
Right, so this one is actually the 23rd, so it would be retroactive
right?
at the board point. So we will reach out to them and, you know, if this committee says we shouldn't send it, if they're not paying it.
Right.
Right, so we'll need that, sort of that direction, because the
That's fair.
board meeting won't happen.
Well, then, yeah, if we would have to retroactively deal with it,
Yep.
then we should
Can
probably
you ask
say
them
no
if it's
here.
a community? Can you ask them if it's their
Until we're
business
sure.
event
Our
or
footing
if
on
it's
it,
a
then we should-
community event?
Yes.
If it's a goodwill community event, I have no issue. But if it's a business event, then I have an issue.
Yep, I can follow up on that for sure.
Only because it leaves, you know, my granddaughter goes to a different daycare. And what if that daycare asks for you to bring a bus for all the little kids to see? We can't, if we do it for one, we have to do it for all.
Yep,
And if you do get an answer, would you, I guess, send it out to the three of us, and then we can get back to you and say, as an ops committee, yes or no, before, moving it forward? That makes sense?
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll
makes
hold
sense.
that, we'll hold that. Any questions?
No, I don't think so. Well done.
I do have an answer to Mr. Ginhart's question, and it was right. So in those capital transfers or fund transfers from the debt service fund as it stood the beginning of this school year, right, it will have, by 2028, 29, it will go into the negative, right? So we're using that to refinance part of our debt service contributions as talked about, right, to reduce the impact of debt service on our general fund budget. But as well, the major transfer out is to the capital budget, and it would not survive past 2028. Okay,
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second. That's fine.
Second.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks all.
So, you know, it looks like Children of America could be a for-profit company,
It is.
right? And if that's the case,